Manchester United have more problems, which can only be solved by signing Amrabat from Fiorentina. United need to get into the market sooner rather than later. Welcome back to the Premier League review. I'm Statman Dave. Of course, if you are new around here, smash that subscribe button. But anyway, let's get into Manchester United's game with Tottenham Hotspur. A 2-0 defeat and some pretty poor transitional play from Manchester United. Their rest defence is something they really need to work on. Today we're going to take a look at that, but also have a look at some of the positives. United created a number of really good opportunities, and if they'd taken those chances, they would have gone on to win the game. So Erik Ten Hag went with the 4-3-3 that he's played this season. Spurs under Postecoglu are playing a kind of 4-2-3-1 that very much changes in possession with both of the wing-backs. Moving inside to invert, Bissouma dropping on the base, Sarr moving into attacking midfield and creating a front five. Manchester United's problem was not only in dealing with Spurs playing out from the back. I think the pressing was, at times they were caught out with the switch out to fullback, but other times they pressed really well in those central areas. But more concerning for Manchester United was when they were attacking Spurs in the Spurs half, when Spurs had retracted into their 4-1-4-1 system, was the Manchester United's rest defence. When we're talking rest defence, I'm talking about the structure Manchester United put in place to deal with a transition from attack to defence. So in terms of the final third, Spurs in their 4-1-4-1, shaped with Richarlison and Maddison playing on the counter-attack. Manchester United, as you know, under Erik Ten Hag, like to play with 3 number 10s, 2 wingers, supported by the rest of the team. The issue Manchester United against Spurs, in countless examples, was Manchester United's rest defence just wasn't good enough. When we look at the best teams in terms of how they set up their side when, looking to stop the opposition counter-attacking, Manchester City and Arsenal use a box system where one of their fullbacks comes inside. They create this central box in the pitch and not only retain possession, but have the ability to instantly put the squeeze on the opposition and win the ball back. Manchester United, though, are a little bit of a halfway house. At times, we see Aaron Wan-Bissaka in an inside position, Casemiro holding a pretty central position, but they're not really being, an overload in this central area. What Manchester United need to start doing is using Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw in inverted positions. For me, the 2-3 structure is coming back this season. We saw Spurs play it against Manchester United with both fullbacks inverting, with Casemiro having more support, meaning that you've got 2 centre-halves to deal with any long balls or balls into the channels. What we're seeing with Manchester City this season, an interesting kind of evolution of their setup. Kovacic is sitting in a defensive midfield position. One of their wingers is tucking inside Phil Foden. Walker's holding the width. And then Ange is moving from centre-back into midfield. And then the building with a kind of 2-3 shape of Kovacic, Rodri, and of course Akanji. Manchester United really need to work on their structure because at the moment it's not good enough. We don't see this kind of midfield 3 shape where Man United are attacking the opponent's box. The other issue with Manchester United, I think, from an attacking sense, is they don't have enough patience. When we watch the best teams in the world, Arsenal's, the Man Cities, they have patience in the final third where they'll walk the ball to flanks, they'll use the ball to, move the opposition around, rotate possession, then look to create a 1v1 or an underlapping opportunity, or alternatively hit the byline and cross to create. Manchester United at the moment are not looking good in a rest defence perspective, but also they're looking pretty horrendous in terms of not going direct and being patient on the ball. So let's take a look at 3 examples of this. The last, of course, resulting in Tottenham Hotspur's opening goal of the game. This is the first clip we're going to look at today. Casemiro in the final third with the ball at his feet. Manchester United, 3 of those central strikers. Antony tucking in, Marcus Rashford, Bruno Fernandes and Garnacho far wide. This is a bit of a transitional moment. Man United have just won the ball back, so looking to hit Spurs in their build-up structure. In terms of the passage of play here, I don't think Casemiro's forward pass early is a bad one into the feet of Marcus Rashford, but it's the reaction of the rest of the team from this point that I think is a real issue. As we see Manchester United with the ball in the box, Marcus Rashford trying to get it under control and gets a shot away. But if we just watch the players around him, obviously Bruno Fernandes made the run inside, Antony's in the penalty area. But there's a real problem with United's shape in a second, because what you would want to do is put instant pressure on the football. You want to collapse as soon as you've lost the ball and try and win it back. Teams are so vulnerable at those times. Jurgen Klopp uses pressure as an extra playmaker. But Manchester United need to start being far more aggressive. I think from Mason Mount's positioning, he's a little bit too deep to get on the ball. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is far too wide in terms of you want that fullback inside so you can put pressure on the football. Dejan Kulusevski sitting in a pretty interesting pocket of space. But United's lack of intensity and lack of shape from a rest defence perspective is really, really poor. What this led time and time again was Casemiro or Mason Mount getting dribbled in open play through the centre of United's shape. It's exactly the same as what happened with Wolves last season. In fact, if you look at the top 5 dribblers in the Premier League this season, they've all played against Manchester United. Matheus Nunes is there. Pedro Neto is there. Of course, we've got Bissouma. And just have a look at this move from James Maddison. It's a really simple move into space, driving past both Mason Mount and Casemiro, and then Spurs are in a very dangerous position. And this is the problem with having a poor rest defence. It means you're so open to the transition. Here on shot, we can see 5 Spurs attackers supporting the ball carrier. It's basically a 6-on-4 or a 6-on-5 if you're looking at the defensive midfield for Manchester United. But that kind of comes to like poor organisation around the ball when you're attacking the opponent's box. I know it's a quick moment, but the organisation is just not there. Wan-Bissaka's not narrow enough. The other fullback's not narrow enough. The distance between United defence and their midfield is far too big, as we see with the next clip. There's a real problem. But let's move through to another example. Here's another example. Another thing that was frustrating me about the game against Spurs was United were failing to utilise the inside channel with their attacking midfield line. When we look at classic shapes under Erik Ten Hag, 3 number 10s, 2 wide players, and then you've got your rest defence in behind. For Manchester United, if, for example, we'd filled in that gap, it isn't too bad. United aren't in too bad a situation. I'd like Mason Mount to be a little bit deeper, probably goal side of Sarr to receive the ball with play ahead and then work it out. I'd like him to be in a bit of a deeper position, but it's not too bad. The issue comes, of course, is nobody's filling in when Aaron Wan-Bissaka joins that attacking unit. Mason Mount's in a bit of a halfway house position. He's not involved in the forward line, but he's also not involved in that kind of midfield rest defence situation. So as Wan-Bissaka plays the ball in, another issue in Manchester United is they are looking far too direct in the final third. This is like going back to the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer days where United would load 5 attackers on the opponent's back line and they'd look for hopeful balls over the top. This is not good enough, and Man United need to have far more patience in these areas, because if United are set up like this where they're looking super direct, where now Wan-Bissaka's trying to attack the penalty area, which I don't think is too bad, it's just the balance of the rest of the team. Mason Mount's too high. Where is Luke Shaw from a inverted fullback position? And the centre-backs are far too deep. Obviously, Casemiro gets his cross wrong. Bissouma intercepts, but there's nobody covering that pocket of space there in the transition, which leaves Bissouma to instantly pick up the ball with nobody near him. Again, the counter press from Man United is absolutely shocking. There is no pressure on the ball. There's no man-to-man coverage. Wan-Bissaka sitting on Son, Casemiro on Maddison. It's far too easy for Bissouma just to carry out in space, and again, Spurs break with 5 attackers against United's back 3. This results in Heung-min Son having a 1v1 with Rafael Varane in the left channel. He takes it on the inside, and it results in Kulusevski's shot that's well saved by Onana. The issue with this is these types of situations were far too frequent in this match, where United off the ball, when their team had possession, were very, very poorly organised. But let's take a look at the goal. At this point, I think United are really well set again. I think this is a decent rest defence. Again, we mentioned that kind of midfield 3 line as a rest defence situation. United got 2 centre-backs behind, a front 3, and you forced 8 players from Spurs back, so you're basically dealing with a 2v2. Man United like to go man for man under Erik Ten Hag, so we're in a good situation. But the issue, again, I said before, how we're not dealing with this near channel with an attacker. Bruno Fernandes or Marcus Rashford need to be playing this inside channel here, the inside left position. It's the same thing as we saw previously, where their balls on the right-hand side, and there was no one in the inside right. And that's a problem, because what it means is one of these players that are in this back line need to get involved. What you would really want is if Luke Shaw's going to go attack, which he should do at certain times, as there's no one into that space, push forward. You need this to shuttle over, Mason Mount to take up Shaw's position, Casemiro to go where Mount is, and you want Aaron Wan-Bissaka to fill in this midfield line. That, of course, doesn't happen. The ball goes wide to Alejandro Garnacho, and we don't see the rotation. Casemiro's position is far too high, considering you've got a number 10 on your blind side and Richarlison on your inside. You jump one further after the ball's intercepted by Pedro Porro. The ball into Richarlison's feet is absolutely on. The pressure is from Garnacho. It's not great. There's an out ball to Pape Sarr as well. well. Casemiro's, ball watching. He's got Maddison on his blind side. Ball comes in. Mount gets spun. Casemiro has to come across. A little dink. And United have got a serious problem. If the chain reaction's right from this point here, as we mentioned previously, United are okay, but this is the poor side of United's game at the moment. The rest defence is absolutely sloppy, and this is a real concern. This happened against Wolves, it happened against Spurs, and what this results, obviously Spurs breaking through, James Maddison carrying for an absolute day, nobody putting a challenge in on him, even though Wan-Bissaka's in close proximity. I don't know what Lisandro's doing here. He's playing Heung-min Son on for about a mile and a half, but also you're looking at still James Maddison's got possession. He's had possession for over 11 seconds of the football and no one's put a tackle in. Now we move on to the goal, which again is a frustration. I think it's very, very poor defending from Manchester United. Number one, United were on attack. They've been transitioned. They've got back into their shape okay. But how Luke Shaw deals with this 1v1 situation is very, very poor. So the ball's worked out to Basuma in defensive midfield. He plays it out to Sarr. Now we've got a bit of a tactical cam. Absolutely love this tactical cam. Luke Shaw is just at the bottom of shot here, and we've got Alejandro Garnacho. The first angle when you watch this, it looks like Garnacho has absolutely got Kulusevski, but it's a little bit deceptive, the camera angle. When you look at it from this angle, where the ball is carried from Pedro Porro and then plays it out to Kulusevski, the depth of the attack basically means that you've wiped out Alejandro Garnacho. Like this freeze frame when Kulusevski's just received the ball, Garnacho has got no chance of making it back there. Luke Shaw has got to come out. The defence has got to shuttle over. Luke Shaw should be stopping the attacker, should be looking to win the ball back through a tackle. Martinez should be covering the near post, and United wouldn't have the problem. Not only does Luke Shaw not go out, he takes up a horrible position. Garnacho really tries to work back to get on the ball, doesn't get there. Kulusevski gets basically from a wide area a free run into the box. The block from Luke Shaw is very, very poor. Martinez can't see the ball. It deflects on him. Pape Sarr scores. But this all comes from that poor rest defence and then some poor standard defending from Luke Shaw, not being aggressive to stop Kulusevski dribbling, and it's very, very poor from that perspective. But Manchester United really, really didn't play well against Tottenham, especially in the second half. They really lost control in the first 5-10 minutes of the half, and I think that you've got to look at the bench at that point. I think Erik Ten Hag needs to be a little bit faster with his substitutes if it's not working. And this is a game where you need a ball winner in central midfield. Man United went with Mount and Casemiro, and you're looking at Mason Mount's defensive statistics. Got dribbled twice. Casemiro got dribbled twice in the game as well, and that's a real concern. And honestly, Manchester United should have bought on Scott McTominay. He's the only defensive midfielder in the squad that can win the ball back through tackles and interceptions, and that was the move. And football isn't about you picking the best players that win every single time. Pragmatism is a massive part of it, and if Scott McTominay had come on and his work rate and defensive solidity in that central area where we've seen Spurs carry through Manchester United's lines over and over again, actually would have been a big benefit for United. And that's something that Erik Ten Hag needs to look at. But I talk about this negativity. On the flip side, United created a lot of opportunities and they could have easily won the game. I thought the press was good, as we mentioned previously. Mason Mount's been a player that's been taking a little bit of a flack. I thought he was good in the press. There's a moment inside 2 minutes where he presses Pedro Porro high, catches him out, wins the ball back. The ball's worked to Anthony, who blazes over the bar. That is a decent opportunity for Manchester United to win the ball back in this area. Needs to be far more clinical in this zone. Moving forward to other opportunities, we've got the individual bit of skill from Marcus Rashford, grabbing the ball off Anthony, driving through, and then this is a brilliant save from Vicario. Really, really good right hand to save it. So there's 2 chances inside 15 minutes. On to the 22nd minute, you've got the Rabona cross from Bruno Fernandes with Rashford just offside, heads over the bar. Another really good opportunity. We got the ball from Luke Shaw to Bruno Fernandes in the penalty area, who heads over. These are all coming in the first half. These are 4 big chances. Another one on 13 minutes, the low cross from Marcus Rashford. Garnacho's first touch is quite poor. Then his shot is blocked. And then, of course, we've got the handball. There was absolutely a handball from Romero. But obviously United were on the positive side of VAR last week, but this was definitely a handball and a penalty. All these moments came in the first half. United had 4-5 big opportunities in the first half. So you can't be too disheartened by it. But I feel like there's some systematic problems that really need to be resolved. Mentioned the rest defence this week. We spoke last week about how United's progression and positional play was a little bit off and they needed a midfielder in there. And that, for me, is a real solution for United. Is getting someone like Amrabat in the market is an absolute must. United are very, very poor in these situations when they're in the opponent's half. Amrabat is very, very aggressive. He's a technical footballer. He's brilliant on the ball at, controlling things, playing the passes, switching the play. United currently don't have a player of that description. They don't have a player of that portfolio of a footballer, player that can tackle, that can win the ball back, but also can control the tempo. In a half-back position, as we discussed last week, as someone that can progress the play, again, that draws up the opposition's forward line. Is there space now to play through with one of the wing-backs joining the attacking lineup? This is such an important transfer for Manchester United. Having someone that can really control the tempo is going to allow United to properly beat teams. As I mentioned previously, too many times the United get to the final third, direct ball over the top with runners. We need to see more balls into the feet of the forwards in certain areas. Remember that goal that Antony combined with Weghorst and Marcus Rashford? I think it was against Forest away. It was a brilliant Antony received in the inside channel. Lovely bit of interplay and United scored. Having someone like Amrabat that is a progression master will allow United to score those types of goals. And then they can still score all the goals on the transition that they're creating, all those opportunities. I think the big thing as well is the ability to open up the wide player 1v1. That has been Garnacho, has been Antony, and it's been a little frustrating at times. Both reasonably young players, they're still kind of adapting to Premier League life. Like we've seen moments from those guys, but Marcus Rashford is one of the best left wingers in European football. Marcus Rashford needs to be out left as soon as possible. In fact, Jadon Sancho was supposed to start the game against Spurs, and that would have opened up a different opportunity for United. And that is the humongous problem I feel at the moment, that every time we're working these overloads or these balls from one side to the other side, we've not got someone like Marcus Rashford that's clinical in these areas. He's been okay as a forward, but I think his potential as a left winger is so much higher. He scored the majority of his goals playing that position last season, and when he did move into the number 9 area, it was usually with Weghorst or with another bigger forward that he could run off. So you've got that kind of two-man strike pairing. Or in the latter parts of games with Bruno Fernandes feeding him with through balls on the counter-attack. And that's where we saw the best Rashford as a 9. It wasn't at the start of games. It wasn't it wasn't him dominating the opposition from that perspective. It very much was in certain moments of certain matches when the opposition were getting tired, throw Rashford through the middle, use his pace to get on the counter-attack. But from the start of games, Rashford wide left needs to happen. But also signing someone like Amrabat is an absolute must. And if Liverpool sign Amrabat, United have missed out on an absolutely brilliant central midfielder. And that is the warning for United. The signings have been pretty poor of late, if we're really honest with ourselves. The cost of certain players, the contract length of certain players. You're overpaying on Mason Mount, who is free next summer, or Nana, who we could have picked up on a free transfer 2 years ago. Casemiro started the season off in pretty bad form. He cost 60 million quid last year, on 300 grand a week. You look at some of the signings and you think either the value's wrong, the player's wrong, or it's just not the right thing. And it's a frustration. It really is. But there is positives. United, again, statistically created a good number of chances. You look by the XG, 2.07, which was more than Spurs. They're just not taking those chances. And to have more possession, to dominate the ball more, and to look more like an Erik Ten Hag team, it needs to happen pretty soon, or United will fall out of the race for the championship. And that's something that they could have done at the start of the season. Just not good enough right now. Lack of rest defence, a lack of winning duels in central midfield, and similar tactical problems in the final third to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United. Needs to be a clean-up process. But since Ten Hag's appointment, there's been 20 first-team squad members that have been written off or deemed surplus to requirements, including 8 that left last summer, CR7 who left in November, and 11 that are set to leave this summer. And he's brought in 9 players, so it's still not Erik Ten Hag's team, and sometimes it really looks like that. I've been Statman Dave. Make sure, of course, you subscribe. If you are new around here, smash that like button and get in the comments below. What do you think United need to do? We've spoken about progressing the play from centre-back through the first lines. We spoke this week about rest defence. What's been your problems with United? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Statman Dave. Subscribe if you're new. We'll see you later.